Good morning, everyone. My name is Jen Marie Cruz, and I will be reporting for today implementing HRD programs. So, if we could remember the training HRD process model, we started with the assessment, followed by the design, and the third phase will be the implementation. So, the effective delivery of HRD programs requires considerable preparation as well as creativity and flexibility. Proper delivery or implementation assumes that an important need for training has been identified and that program objectives have been spelled out. So my topic for today, we will be discussing the different training delivery methods like on-the-job training methods, classroom training approaches, self-paced, computer-based training methods, issues concerning training program implementation. So let us first talk about the different training delivery methods. So we could all agree that training is intended to increase the expertise of trainees in a particular area. But the question now is, which one is the appropriate training delivery methods that we have to use? So when thinking about what training methods to use, it is useful to consider the current level of expertise that the trainees possess. As you can see in the picture, this photo depicts a learning pyramid. At the bottom are learning prerequisites, that is the basic skills or knowledge the learner needs to get started. As the figure suggests, the novice learner may easily get confused or anxious. Therefore, novice trainees generally require more guided or instruction-centered training methods. In contrast, as trainees' existing level of expertise increases, they become more creative and confident. Thus, the desired or ideal training methods are also likely to shift more toward exploratory or experiential methods. The middle arrow depicts the point at which individual trainees are ready to shift from more guided to more exploratory learning approaches. An effective training or HRD program should first identify where the trainees are in terms of this pyramid. Then provide assistance for all trainees to ascend toward an expert level of performance. In many situations, both guided and experiential approaches are used. This combined approach is especially valuable when trainees have different learning styles and preferences. So the choice of training method should be guided by three things. First, the program objectives. Second, an explicit consideration of the current level of trainee expertise. And the third is the resources available, both human and technological resources. So here is a table of the different training methods and techniques that we could use when we are implementing HRD programs. First, we have on-the-job training. So techniques that we could use for on-the-job trainings are job instruction training, job rotation, coaching, and mentoring. The second group of methods is the classroom. We could use lecture, conference or discussion, audiovisual, experiential techniques, and classroom-based, computer-based training. The third group of methods is the self-paced. This include paper-based training, where we could use workbooks, program instructions. We also have computer-based training, which is non-classroom based. We could use computer-aided instruction, internet and intranet, and also intelligent computer aided instruction. So we will be discussing these methods and techniques one by one. So let's start with the first methods, which is the on-the-job training or OJT methods. So on-the-job training involves conducting training at a trainee's regular workstation. This is the most common form of training. Most employees receive at least one or at least some training and coaching on the job. Virtually, any type of one-on-one instruction between coworkers or between the employee and supervisor can be classified as OJT. Some have argued that employees learn and retain more through informal learning on the job than they do through formal training programs. On-the-job training has been promoted as a means for organizations to deal with shortage of applicants who possess the skills needed to perform many current jobs, and as a means for organization to deal with accelerating market cycles. Unfortunately, much OJT is conducted informally, without structure, planning, or careful thought. Research indicates that informal OJT leads to increased error rates, lower productivity, and decreased training efficiency. Structured OJT programs are generally conducted by an assigned trainer who is recognized, rewarded, and trained to provide appropriate instructional techniques. Reviews of OJT practices have found that supervisors, co-workers, and to a lesser degree, HRD staff members conduct most of the structured OJT programs. A majority of organizations provide train-the-trainer programs for these assigned OJT trainers. And third, top management generally express support for structured OJT programs. Formal OJT has two distinct advantages over classroom training. First is OJT facilitates the transfer of learning to the job because the trainee has an immediate opportunity to practice the work task on the job. Transfer of learning is enhanced because the learning environment is the same as the performance environment. The second advantage is OJT reduces training costs because no training facilities are needed. There are, however, several limitations to OJT. First, the job site may have physical constraints, noise, or other distractions that inhibit learning. Many of these problems cannot be changed because of the nature of the job. Second, using expensive equipment for training could result in costly damage or disruption of the production schedule. Third, using OJT while customers are present may inconvenience them and temporarily reduce the quality of service. Fourth, OJT involving heavy equipment or chemicals may threaten the safety of others who are working in close proximity. There are at least four identifiable OJT techniques. This includes job instruction training or JIT, job rotation, coaching, and mentoring. First, let's discuss job instruction training or JIT. So JIT is defined as a sequence of instructional procedures used by a trainer to train employees while they work in their assigned jobs. It is a form of OJT. The content of a JIT program is distinguished by its simplicity. So the JIT has actually a four-step process. First is prepare the worker. Preparing the workers is important because they need to know what to expect. Preparation may include providing employees with a training manual, handouts, or other job aids that can be used as references. Second step is present the task. Presenting the task should be carried out in such a way that a trainee understands and can replicate the task. Some trainers demonstrate the task before asking the trainee to repeat the process. Third step is practice. Practice time is important for the trainee to master a particular set of skills. Finally, the trainer needs to conduct a follow-up as a way of ensuring that the trainee is making progress. During this follow-up session, the trainer should apply coaching techniques when appropriate. The role of the trainer in this approach is to guide the learners and help them to discover potential problems and find solutions on their own. The instructor can then provide feedback and reinforce learning. The success of JIT depends on the ability of the trainer to adapt his or her own style to the training process. The trainer, particularly if this person is the trainee's coworker or supervisor, should have an opportunity to assess the trainee's needs before beginning the training. So the second approach or technique under OJT is job rotation. Job rotation has a similar intent of developing job-related skills, but with this approach, a trainee is generally expected to learn more by observing and doing than by receiving instruction. Rotation, as the term implies, involves a series of assignments to different positions or departments for a specified period. During this assignment, the trainee is supervised by a department employee, usually a supervisor, who is responsible for orienting, training, and evaluating the trainee. Throughout the training cycle, the trainee is expected to learn how each department functions, including some key roles, policies, and procedures. At the end of the cycle, the accumulated evaluations will be used to determine the preparedness of the trainee and if and where the person will be permanently assigned. The two other forms of on-the-job training are coaching and mentoring. So let's differentiate the two. So coaching typically occurs between an employee and that person's supervisor and focuses on examining employee performance and taking actions to maintain effective performance and correct performance problems. While in mentoring, a senior manager is paired with a more junior employee for the purpose of giving support, helping the employee learn the ropes, and preparing the employee for increasing responsibility. So those are the techniques or methods under OJT approaches. So just a review, we have the job instruction training, we have job rotation, and also coaching and mentoring. So the next approach is the classroom training approaches. So classroom training approaches are conducted outside the normal work setting. In this sense, a classroom can be any training space set away from the work site. Although many organizations capitalize on whatever usable space they have available to conduct training sessions. Some larger organizations maintain facilities that serve as freestanding training centers. Conducting training away from the work setting has several advantages over OJT. First, classroom settings permit the use of a variety of training techniques, such as video, lecture, discussion, role-playing, and simulation. Second, the environment can be designed or controlled to minimize distractions and create a climate conducive to learning. Third, classroom settings can accommodate larger numbers of trainees than the typical on-the-job setting, allowing for more efficient delivery of training. On the other hand, two potential disadvantages of classroom methods are increased costs, such as travel and the rental or purchase, and also maintenance of rooms and equipment. Second, dissimilarity to the job setting, making the transfer of training more difficult. There are five primary categories of classroom training. It includes lecture, discussion, audiovisual media, experiential methods, and computer-based training, which is classroom-based. So let's start with the lecture approach. The lecture method involves the oral presentation of information by a subject matter expert to a group of listeners. The lecture continues to be a popular training technique. I know most of you prefer this type of approach. One reason that the lecture method is so popular is that it is an efficient way of transmitting factual information to a large audience in a relatively short period of time. When used in conjunction with visual aids such as slides, charts, maps, and handouts, the lecture can be an efficient way to facilitate the transfer of theories, concepts, procedures, and other factual material. A related disadvantage of the lecture method is the lack of idea sharing among trainees. Without dialogue or without interaction, trainees may not be able to put things into a common perspective that makes sense to them. Research has found positive learning effects from the lecture method both when used alone and in combination with other methods such as discussion and role-playing. This suggests that further research is needed to identify the conditions under which the lecture method is effective, as well as ways to improve its effectiveness. At this point, there are two ideas or 2 points that seem clear. First, interesting lectures promote greater learning than dull lectures. Trainers should make every effort to make their lectures as interesting as possible. Second, there are advantages to supplementing lecture with other methods, including discussion, video, and role-playing, particularly when abstract or procedural material needs presenting. This combination can increase two-way communication and facilitate greater interaction with the material. So after the lecture approach, we also have the discussion method. The discussion method involves a trainer in two-way communication with trainees, and the trainees in communication with each other. Because active participation is encouraged, The discussion method offers trainees an opportunity for feedback, clarification, and sharing points of view. Given this dynamic, the discussion technique can overcome some of the limitations of the straight lecture method. However, the success of this method depends upon the ability of the trainer to initiate and manage class discussion by asking one or more of the following types of the questions. So the trainer could use direct questions. This can be used to illustrate or produce a very narrow response. Second, reflective questions. These questions can be used to mirror what someone else say or says to make sure their message is received as intended. Third is an open-ended question. These type of questions can be used to challenge the trainees to increase their understanding of a specific topic. Michael Marquardt recommends the greatest use of open-ended questions, since this type of questions encourage creativity with minimal use of direct or leading questions. He also he also added that good questions should create clarity, help people think analytically and critically, inspire people to reflect and view things in new ways, challenge assumptions, and create ownerships and solutions. Managing discussion goes beyond simply questioning participants. The trainer must ensure that trainees are reinforced for their responses. Respect and acknowledgement should be given to all responses, even those that are not exactly what the facilitator may be looking for at that point in the discussion. The trainer must also act as a gatekeeper, giving everyone an opportunity to express their point of view and not letting the discussion be dominated by a few vocal participants. Managing discussion in large training classes can be difficult. Not only are the opportunities for an individual to participate reduced in a large group, some participants may also feel intimidated and reluctant to get involved. So what's the solution? So we could divide a large class into a smaller discussion groups, which can then share their ideas with other groups and can increase the opportunity for discussion. The next approach is the use of audiovisual media. So both the lecture and discussion methods are limited in their ability to adequately portray dynamic and complex events. Audiovisual methods take advantage of various media to illustrate or demonstrate the training material. Audiovisual media can bring complex events to life by showing and describing details that are often difficult to communicate in other ways. So we do have different types of media. First, we have the static media. This example of these are printed materials like handouts, reference books, textbooks that allow trainees to keep these materials and refer to it before, during, and after the training. We also have the slides. Um, this one is frequently used right now. This is in ways similar to printed materials, but they are being projected through a computer or a camera or projector. Second type of media is what we call dynamic media. So example of these are CDs, DVDs, videotape, films, audio cassettes. There are literally thousands of commercially produced films, videos, and DVDs available to HRD professionals through film libraries, professional societies, and retail outlets. Some HRD professionals argue that younger generations who grew up watching films and television may actually prefer this form of presentation. But one potential limitation of this technique is that trainers may rely too much on film or video and focus too little on training content. Such reliance can lead to complacency among trainees who view the films and videos as entertainment rather than as opportunities to learn. And the third type of media is telecommunications. This is the transmission of training programs to different locations via telecommunications. Linking several locations for instructional and conference purposes is known as instructional television or interactive television. Telecommunication technology also allow organization to conduct conferences or training programs between remote locations. This technique is now known as teleconferencing or video conferencing. This helps organizations reduce trainer, travel, and facility costs, and it increases the availability of training to remote locations. Okay? So that's for audiovisual media. Let's move on to the next, which is the experiential method. So experientialists believe that effective learning is an active experience that challenges the skills, knowledge, and beliefs of participants. This is accomplished by creating a contrived yet realistic environment that is both challenging and psychologically safe for the participant to investigate and to employ new concepts, skills, and behaviors. Experiential instructors recognize that learners bring to the learning environment a set of accumulated knowledge and learning methods that are simultaneously functional or dysfunctional depending on the learning situation. There are some examples of experiential methods. First one is the case study method. The case study method helps trainees learn analytical and problem-solving skills by presenting a story or a case about people in an organization who are facing problem or decision. Cases may be based on actual events involving real people in an organization, or they can be fictional. Second is business games and simulations. Like the case method, business games are intended to develop or refine problem-solving and decision-making skills. However, this technique tends to focus primarily on business management decisions. Third is role-playing. Role-playing is a popular training technique, though often it is a method that is loved by some trainees and hated by the others. In the role-playing technique, trainees are presented with an organizational situation, assigned a role or character in the situation, and asked to act out the role with one or more other trainees. The role play should offer trainees an opportunity for self-discovery and learning. Actually, in our hospital, in our department, which is the nursing education training, we usually or use role playing, especially for those training. Example is our preceptorship program. When we discuss about conflict management, we do role playing. We give situations to our trainees and let them decide or act out, decide what will they do in those types of situations. And lastly is behavioral modeling. So social learning theory, just like what Ma'am Jill discussed in chapter 2, suggests that many of our behavioral patterns are learned from observing others. This theory forms the basis of behavior modeling. In organizations, employees learn all kinds of behaviors from observing supervisors, managers, leaders, and coworkers who serve as role models. Under normal conditions, role models can have a tremendous influence on individual behavior. That's why those people who are in position should be very careful on how they act or how they work, because the junior or the new nurses or the new employees will tend to follow their behavior or copy or model their behavior. Lastly, last technique in the classroom-based approach is the computer-based training. Computer-based training can be conducted using a classroom or via an individual self-paced format. Increasingly, e-learning, like online distance education, is combining elements of instructor-led and self-paced learning. A broader term for such approach is technology-mediated learning. With the increased availability of network computer labs, there can be almost limitless interplay between instructor-led and individual-based computer training and learning. So that ends the classroom training approaches. Now we will move on to the self-paced, computer-based training media and methods. Before the 1980s, most self-paced training was paper-based. But right now, with the advent of technology and internet and computers, we already have computer-based training that are self-paced. So computers and other advances in technology have had an enormous impact on the delivery of the training in organization. The primary advantage of CBT or computer-based training has has over other methods of training is its interactivity. The interaction between learner and computer in many CBT programs mirrors the one-on-one relationship between the student and tutor. Questions and responses go back and forth, resulting in immediate feedback. An additional advantage of technology-based training is that it is well suited to on-demand learners, that is, those trainees who need greater control over when and how training is delivered. There are three approaches to CBT. First is a computer-aided instruction or CAI, the internet and intranet-based training, and the intelligent computer-assisted instruction. So let's start with CAI. Computer-aided instruction programs can range from electronic workbooks using the drill and practice approach to compact disc read-only memory presentations of a traditional training program. CAI software packages are available at relatively low cost for a wide range of material, from teaching basic skills to more or to highly technical or scientific topics. There are several advantages of CAI as compared to other training methods and techniques. First is considering the interactive nature of CAI. Based on the trainee's responses, the computer will present various levels of material until the trainee reaches mastery. The second advantage is CAI's self-pacing feature that allows trainees to control the speed of instruction and makes them self-sufficient learners. A third advantage is the logistics of CAI that make it more accessible through internal distribution systems, downloading from a central computer or over the internet to remote sites, which eliminates travel and per diem costs. Finally, CAI offers an instructional or learning management system that automatically tracks student progress and the allocation and use of instructional resources, including terminals, instructors, and classroom. Second example of self-paced and computer-based training is the internet and intranet-based training. Intranets are computer networks that use internet technology, software tools, and protocols for finding, managing, and creating and distributing information within one organization. Intranet-based training uses internal computer networks for training purposes. Most of the organizations right now have their own intranet, and they are doing their trainings on their system. Just like in our hospital, we do have our intranet where we can find everything that we need to work. We can find all the policies and procedures there. We can also access our hospital information system through the intranet. And also there's one part there where we could find all the training videos and materials for the nurses. While the internet, as we already are familiar with, it is the fastest growing technological phenomena the world has ever seen. And today, a lot of trainings are found in the internet. Just one click away, then we can undergo some trainings. Next is intelligent computer assisted instruction. This is also called intelligent tutoring system. It goes beyond CAI in terms of flexibility and ability to qualitatively evaluate learner performance. Whereas a typical CAI program may allow the learner to select from among several levels of presentation, an ICAI program is able to discern the learner's capability from the learner's response patterns and by analyzing the learner's errors. The goal of the ICAI system is to provide learners with an electronic teacher's assistant that can patiently offer advice to individual learners, encourage learner practice, and stimulate learners' curiosity through experimentation. So I don't know if you are familiar with the new basic life support training that was developed by the American Heart Association. Because I just renewed my BLS last December, and they already have they created the training which is composed of two parts. The first is the computer based training, and the second one is the actual or the return demonstration. In the first part of the training, there would be some questions where you will answer. But if you commit consecutive mistakes on those questions, the computer will give you or will stop the questions and give you more instructions. It is as if the computer is discerning how good are you in answering those questions. So I think that's one example of intelligent computer assisted instruction. So ICAI programs are based on advances in artificial intelligence, which involves engineering some aspects of the human thought process into a computer. It's like you have a teacher inside the computer. So those are um, the techniques or methods that we can use under the self-paced, computer-based methods or approaches. Now let's move on to my last topic, which is issues and challenges concerning training program implementation. First is increased demand in technology-based training, especially, especially nowadays when the pandemic started, where there is limitations of face-to-face interaction, there is also really an increasing demand in computer-based training or technology-based training. Although many would prefer these types of training, this may not always be the best option or solution for every training situation. Second is arrangement of the physical environment. Selection of appropriate venue or setting of training is an important implementation concern because we have to select the setting or the venue of our training appropriately to the type of training delivery method that we are going to use. Third, engaging learners. HRD professionals must communicate the value of learning and development. Too often, other urgent tasks or priorities seem to win out. It's a challenge to get learners to attend, actively participate, and follow through. Especially in our hospital, it's really hard for us nursing educators to conduct trainings for the nurses right now due to staffing issues. And most of our nurses are already tired. And so, know, having them attend trainings is already exhausting on their part. So it's a challenge for us, really. Delivering consistent training. When a company is global or geographically dispersed, it increases the difficulty of providing consistent training. The most common challenges of training and development include geographic limitations, increased costs, language barriers, translation issues, and virtual training needs. We also face this problem, especially language barrier, since we are, you know, we have a lot of or multinational nurses in our hospital. We have Filipinos, we have Indians, we have Saudis, we have Jordanians, South Africans, and it's really hard to conduct training, especially to the locals who couldn't speak English well or who couldn't understand English. So it's really challenging for us to teach them, to train them. And lastly, another last issue or challenge is adapting training to millennials. Traditional training methods may not work with millennials. This generation may be technologically proficient, but they also tend to lack important skills such as communication, diplomacy, and relationship building. It can also be difficult to provide training to multiple generations, especially if you do have, I don't want to say old, but senior employees, and if you will mix them up with the younger ones, it would be hard to select the type of training delivery methods to use. So to summarize, and there are some or a few takeaways here. There are three primary training methods. We have OJT, classroom, and self-paced training. Each method has a number of techniques appropriate for particular situations. A trainer needs to select the best combination of techniques that will maximize trainee learning. Great care is needed to make the most appropriate use of technology to enhance HRD implementation. So before I end my report, I just want you to leave this quote from Jack Welch. An organization's ability to learn and translate that learning into action is the ultimate competitive advantage. Thank you for listening and have a great day, everyone. Oops, before I end my report, I just want to leave one question for everyone to answer. What do you think, based on my report, what do you think is the best training delivery method that you could use? Thanks so much for listening and have a good day, everyone.